and thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight. I'm Brandis Friedman. Here's what we're looking at. We're live from Springfield with the latest on measures that address rising insurance rates, AI regulation, and more. Confusion over a new policy shift from the Trump administration requiring most green card applicants to apply from their home countries.
This is not just about music or entertainment. This is art history.
And art, music, and movement. We take you inside an exhibit exploring the evolution of Reggaetón. First off tonight, the family of 13-year-old Adam Toledo is again filing a wrongful death lawsuit against the city, this time in federal court. The case had been set for trial in Cook County last month, but stalled as attorneys filed dozens of pretrial motions. It led the attorney for Adam's parents, Elizabeth and Marco Toledo, to drop that lawsuit, promising to refile. Toledo was shot and killed by a Chicago police officer, Eric Stillman, after a brief foot chase in Little Village back in 2021. The Toledo family attorney says, quote, Adam's death was not the product of an unavoidable split-second decision, but rather the foreseeable result of a continuous series of escalating tactical choices, policy violations, failures in de-escalation, failures in supervision, and systemic institutional deficiencies that the city of Chicago had been warned about for years. Attorneys for the city declined to comment on pending litigation. Tuesday would have been Adam's 19th birthday. A delegation of Chicagoans, including Mayor Brandon Johnson, visited the Vatican today to meet Pope Leo. Chicago reporters on the scene say the mayor and the Pope discussed the impacts of Midway Blitz, war reparations for slavery, and on a lighter note, the Cubs and White Sox, which we already know where the Pope's loyalties lie there, right? Also on the agenda, an invitation for the Pope to return to Chicago and lead a mass in Grant Park, as Pope John Paul II did back in 1979. Alanis Morissette, Nas, Iggy Pop, Patti Smith, just a few of the performers that music lovers can hear at this year's Riot Fest. The annual music festival returns to Douglas Park September 18th through the 20th. The family-friendly event, which includes a carnival with rides, games, and attractions, is also including Chicago legend Tom Skilling. The former WGN meteorologist will be on site to deliver the weekend's weather forecast after a remote cameo appearance last year. Tickets are already on sale. Douglas Park residents receive free tickets. For more events happening this summer in the Chicago area, be sure to check out our website, WTTW.com/festivals. Up next, Nick Blumberg joins us live from Springfield as the deadline to pass legislation quickly approaches.
Chicago Tonight is made possible in part by the Alexandra and John Nichols family, the Polk Brothers Foundation, and the support of these donors.
With the clock ticking on Springfield's spring session, lawmakers aren't just hustling to pass a budget and negotiate a Bears stadium deal. They're also working through a slew of other legislation that's trying to make its way through the General Assembly before the Sunday deadline. Nick Blumberg joins us from the Capitol with a rundown of the major items, including some that the governor is eager to see passed. Nick.
That's right. You know, Brandis, for a lot of us, AI is no doubt one of the major concerns on our mind. State lawmakers, they are no different. That's why the Illinois General Assembly just passed new AI regulations that some experts are calling the toughest in the nation. The bill just passed yesterday and now heads to the governor's desk. The goal here is transparency. The measure calls on AI developers to explain how the company accounts for major risks, the metrics it uses to determine what its models can do, as well as how it handles safety incidents, among other things. It also mandates third-party audits to make sure that those AI firms are actually following the frameworks they come up with. Now, while this bill had the support of major AI players like OpenAI and Anthropic, the American Innovators Network, that's a group representing AI startups and entrepreneurs, they've urged state lawmakers to rethink this measure. Quote, the Illinois General Assembly has taken a misguided approach to AI regulation by establishing a burdensome audit requirement to assess AI companies companies based on auditing standards that do not yet exist, effectively handing the power to write Illinois law to whichever accounting firm gets hired. It goes on, whether we choose to acknowledge it or not, policymakers are legislating in an arena dominated by trillion-dollar companies. There's a real difference between a startup that marginally clears the $500 million threshold and an enterprise doing billions in business every week. Although I think most of us would agree $500 million, still a good chunk of change. Despite that pushback, Governor J.B. Pritzker says he plans to sign the bill. There are also some other AI bills still under consideration, things like regulations for chatbots used for mental health care or for customer service, as well as some restrictions on, reporting requirements for the use of AI in schools.
And Nick, there's also a couple of other measures that we've been following that have the governor's support. Tell us about those.
That's right. Pritzker has also announced that he will sign bills passed yesterday. These would give the state's Department of Insurance the right to reject auto or home rate increases that have been deemed excessive. That's something that advocates have long called for, given skyrocketing insurance premiums. Another item with the governor's backing would create the Children's Online Safety Act. Now, this one would mandate age verification, it would prevent autoplay media for minors, and it would block notifications to minors between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. Now, we heard about this from the governor back in February in his State of the State speech. He called out social media platforms for creating mental health problems in teens and for contributing to misinformation and polarization. That bill still needs to pass the state Senate before it can go back to the House for a final okay.
And Nick, there's also a measure aimed at protecting the privacy of patients who are seeking abortion care. Tell us about that.
That's right. As we've reported, Illinois has become a major destination for patients after the rollback of abortion rights following the Supreme Court's Dobbs decision in 2022. According to the research and advocacy organization, the Guttmacher Institute, about 1 in 4 patients seeking care in a state other than where they live have come to Illinois for that abortion care. Now, this bill is expected to pass the state Senate. It requires health information exchanges to come up with policies that essentially segregate that health care information related to abortion care as well as gender dysphoria, and in most all instances it would prevent the release of that health information to any out-of-state entity. It would also block an electronic health network from telling providers in the other state that that information has been withheld. Now, that one will still need to go back to the Illinois House for a final okay if it does in fact pass. Brandis.
Okay. A few more days in Springfield. Nick, thank you. And you can read Nick's full story on our website. It is all at WTTW.com/news. Immigrants looking to get a green card may be surprised to learn about a change in procedure, returning to their home country to apply. That's the policy shift recently announced by the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services Agency. USCIS says the change restores the original intent of U.S. green card laws, but immigration attorneys argue it upends years of precedent and signals a broader crackdown on legal immigration pathways. Here to help us understand are Nayera Testai, an immigration lawyer with the firm Hughes, Sokol, Piers, Resnick and Dim Limited, and Shannon Shepard, an immigration lawyer with the firm Immigration Attorneys LLP. Thanks to you both for joining us. Shannon Shepard, let's start with sort of outlining the green card application process and how it typically works. What is a green card and what are the steps it usually takes to get one?
Yeah, thank you. The green card is the lawful permanent resident status that foreign nationals can attain while remaining in the United States, usually. For decades, Congress initiated this law, which allows for certain foreign nationals to apply for a green card without having to return to their home countries. The process usually applies to either foreign nationals who are employed here on employment visas that are temporary and their companies want them to become permanent, or to family-based petitions, spouses of U.S. citizens being the most common.
And is a green card, is it sort of a long-term status? Is that something that you can have for indefinitely?
Yes, it is indefinite. The green card itself expires after 10 years, and you have to apply to renew it. But the status itself does not expire unless there's some issue with maintaining the status.
Unlike a visa that, like in this one, it expires after 10 years.
Right.
And it's typically, you don't have to go to your home country to make that application, correct? You can usually do it within the states.
Correct. If you are either here lawfully or married to a U.S. citizen and you entered lawfully, then you can apply for adjustment of status without having to return to the home country.
Nair, break down this policy change for us, and what did USCIS announce last week?
So on Friday, USCIS released this policy memo saying that adjustment of status, so being able to get your green card stateside, is an extraordinary form of discretionary relief. So it's something that where it's available, individuals should consular process, so meaning they should go to a consulate or an embassy to get their green card instead of applying stateside. And this is just upending decades of statutory interpretation, of case law, of practice, because that was never the case. The case law actually says that if an individual meets the requirements of adjustment of status, if they're admissible, meaning there's nothing that prevents them from getting a green card, generally adjustment of status should be granted. So what they are saying is actually not a factual representation of the law.
What's your reaction to this move?
It's just another way that this administration is going against legal immigration. They don't want people to be able to stay in the United States lawfully, and they're trying every path possible to be able to prevent people from staying here with their families.
Shannon, give us a sense of the scope. How many green card applicants do we think there are in the U.S.? How many people could be affected by this?
So it's hundreds of thousands. In 2024, I believe there were about 500,000 green cards granted, and the number rose in 2025. So this is a huge population that would be affected by this policy.
How would USCIS go about enforcing a change like this? And could a green card applicant risk being deported if they just showed up for that application?
Well, these are things that USCIS has not made clear through their policy memo, is what they're going to do for, say, someone who already has a pending adjustment of status application. Can they still go? We've just been hearing anecdotally this week that officers at the immigration office are asking additional questions, such as why can't you just go to your home country and consular process? But no decisions have been made yet on these cases, so we just don't know how it's going to impact those with already pending cases and who in the future will be able to even apply.
What does that tell you when you hear that applicants are hearing different and maybe strange questions?
It seems like the questions are designed to bring out either some flaw in their history or some way to not exercise the discretion that USCIS normally would exercise in allowing them to stay here while they go through this process.
Nair, what have you heard from your clients? Are they anxious? Are they worried?
Yeah, absolutely. Especially clients who already had their applications in, who understood the law to be a certain way at the time that they applied and that they paid their fees, and the rules are just being changed halfway through. It's really unfair, and it's creating a lot of uncertainty, and it's really upending people's plans for their future.
And how long does this process typically take? I mean, if people already have their applications in, and I imagine they're waiting for some time.
Yeah, so it really varies. We have seen some that there are significant delays of multiple years, but for the most part, if I had a client coming to me last week, I would say within 9 to 12 months, we should have a decision on your case.
Shannon, what are you hearing from your clients?
Much of the same. Everyone is very confused by the policy. They're very panicked. They're worried about, like you said, being subject to deportation, even though they were trying to follow the law and doing the right thing. So this policy memo seems to try to punish people who've actually done the right thing the whole way along.
Nair, at USCIS, as you mentioned, they've said that this change is consistent with long-standing immigration law. They write, quote, "We are returning to the original intent of the law to ensure aliens navigate our nation's immigration system properly." It also calls the adjustment of status, like you said, an extraordinary form of relief. What do you make out of that? Like, is the agency correctly arguing the original intent of the law?
No, not at all. So, about 1.1 million individuals have been granted green cards in 2023. Of those, around 600,000 did it through adjustment of status stateside, and around 500,000 did it through consular processing. So,
as in their home countries?
Yes. Mm-hmm. So the majority of people who are getting green cards have actually done it through the adjustment of status process. Calling it a loophole that people are trying to circumvent the proper way of doing it is just absolutely absurd. The law is very clear that there are pathways for people to obtain their green cards while they are here in the United States, and there's no specific preference in the law for individuals to go abroad. So absolutely not based.
So then it sounds like the law doesn't say much governing green card issuance about where you're supposed to apply from.
No, so the law clearly says that individuals who are eligible are able to apply stateside, including spouses of U.S. citizens, parents of U.S. citizens, minor children of U.S. citizens, and certain employment-based categories, that there is no need for them to travel abroad, and that there's clear congressional intent, in part because Congress understands that people have lives here, they have employment, they have their families, and it really puts a huge barrier for them if they have to travel abroad and bear the time and the expense to have to do that, especially since a lot of people aren't even eligible to go to their home country to be able to get their green cards. If you're here unlawfully for more than a year, if you travel abroad, you trigger a 10-year bar that you're not able to return. So individuals who are married to U.S. citizens, for example, and overstayed their visa from when they were very young, this process isn't actually viable for them. They would have to apply for a waiver, wait multiple years. The process would probably be 5 years or more.
Shannon, USCIS says that there could be exceptions to this policy change in, quote, extraordinary circumstances. What are extraordinary circumstances?
Well, that's another thing they failed to define when they issued this memo. Typically, when someone does need a waiver, like Nair was mentioning, they look at hardship factors. So if it's a family-based case, their family ties, their length of residence here, their employment, if there's any medical conditions in the family, things like that. This memo did mention showing that you were of national benefit or economic benefit to the United States. We can speculate that might mean that employment-based petitions would be considered within that factor, but we just don't know yet. And so it's really hard to advise our clients as to what kind of things they should be doing or gathering in order to avail of this process.
There have also been reports of months-long delays for the renewal process for deferred action of childhood arrivals or DACA recipients. Does the green card announcement, does this represent, do you think, a larger shift by the administration to sort of go after legal pathways of immigration?
Yes, definitely. There has been just a systematic chipping away at the processes that were previously available. So DACA is a great example. Those were people who were brought here as children, and before we were seeing renewals in 2 to 3 months. Now it's 7-8 months, and so their status expires during that time, and that puts them in a really awful position.
To that point, are there other methods of sort of legal immigration that you're seeing, sort of changes happen to, or efforts that are diminishing those efforts, basically?
Yeah, the one that comes to mind is temporary protected status, TPS, which is available for people who the Department of Homeland Security has determined that their home country is not safe to return to, either due to war or a natural disaster or something like that. And this Department of Homeland Security is trying slowly to scale back on those protections for people who are in that situation.
Right. It would seem to me also that, like you mentioned, 1.1 million people in 2023, Nayara, there are only so many people that for whom are eligible for the green card process anyway, right? So it seems like, is this the best group to go after? Like, does this hit a large group of people who are attempting to stay in the United States for, either to be with family or to work?
Yeah, so by definition, these are people who either have employment-based ties or family-based ties in the U.S. So going after this subset of individuals really doesn't make any sense. What is mostly going to happen is that people, are going through this process. If the scope of the policy memo is really as broad as it could be based on what they're saying, this is going to funnel a lot of people into removal proceedings, having to see an immigration judge, where they will have to, the judge will revisit their application and determine whether they're eligible for adjustment of status or not.
Okay, I'm sure the two of you will be keeping an eye on this for your clients and just in general. Nayara Testai and Shannon Shepard, thanks to you both. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us.
Up next, a new exhibition explores the history of reggaeton. A new contemporary art exhibition explores the evolution and spiritual roots of what are arguably the Caribbean's two most popular music genres, dancehall and reggaeton. It's a showcase that can move you both emotionally and physically as it takes you through the history. Reporter Joanna Hernandez has more.
It's a participatory space. In the beginning, I really wanted to do a club. My dream was like, I want to do a club in the museum. Wouldn't that be cool?
This feels like a club.
Well, this is the closest I got to a club.
Carla Becerro Yates is a curator of a new exhibition at the Museum of Contemporary Art called Dancing the Revolution from Dancehall to Reggaeton.
We are sitting on an artwork by Blue Curry, and there's other artworks that you can sit in so people can actually have conversations.
From the moment you step into the exhibition, you're met with speakers, photographs, artwork, and video installations showing the evolution and spirit of dance culture.
Both dancehall and reggaeton are musical genres that come from working class communities, marginalized communities.
Her passion to explore this topic sparked from the protests that erupted in Puerto Rico in the summer of 2019.
It's about how we hold these different contradictions from like joy to grief, celebration and struggle and resistance. They're not incompatible. That we can do a reggaeton protest in the streets to demand the ousting of a governor. And we can also go to a party and dance. And those things, I think, come together in a really potent way.
Through pictures and art installations, the exhibit takes people on a journey, beginning in Jamaica, exploring practices rooted in Black Atlantic and its evolution of expression.
One thing that is important to understand is that the lineage of protest in the Caribbean has always included music and dance. So it has a very different lineage than the United States or Europe, for example. So going back to Jamaica, especially to Kingston, I started to do research on dancehall, but also on sound system culture, which is really where these musical genres were created in Kingston.
Each room tells a story of how the beats we love emerged through sounds found across the Caribbean, including Panama.
Reggae en Español started because of the Panama Canal, a geopolitical moment when West Indian workers and Jamaican workers were brought to Panama to construct the Panama Canal, and with them they brought their records. And with their records, they started singing on the instrumental B-sides and started translating the lyrics from English to Spanish. And I think that is such a fascinating way to think about music as really a migration story.
It's a personal project that Becerro Yates says reconnects her to her upbringing.
I remember that I had a mixtape that was a copy of a mixtape, that was a copy of another tape. So I grew up with this music, and at the time it was criminalized by the governor, by Pedro Rosselló.
From its underground roots, reggaeton has evolved into a global phenomenon, with generations of artists paving the way for stars like Bad Bunny.
His work is very political, and I think that he carries the voices and the spirit, the social and political histories. He's giving voice to that, and he's also carrying that message to a global audience.
More than 42 artists are part of the showcase, a vision that took 3 years to come to life.
One of the main takeaways I want people to go with is that reggaeton is not just entertainment. It has a really deep social, political, and spiritual history that dates back to the colonial era.
For Chicago Tonight, I'm Joanna Hernandez.
The exhibition runs at the Museum of Contemporary Art until September 20th. Illinois residents get free entry on Tuesdays when the museum also hosts a karaoke night. We're back right after this.
Reflecting the people and perspectives that make up our communities, this story is part of Chicago Tonight, Latino Voices.
And that's our show for this Thursday night. The weekend is quickly approaching, so if you're still looking for things to do, check out our website for our Chicago Summer Festival Guide. It is all at WTTW.com/festivals. And join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and 7 for the Week in Review. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight, I'm Brandis Friedman. Thank you for watching. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a Chicago personal injury and wrongful death firm that supports educational initiatives in the legal profession.